business is digital. If you're in business, you've got to know about digital. Okay, what do I need to know? You pretty much need to know all sorts, because different things are going to bombard you different. You know, social media is complex. It's complex. You know, it's not just about a few channels. It's complex, because to do social media, you've got to be able to communicate. You've got to be able to write. You've got to be able to create fantastic content. You've got to engage people. You've got to be listening to people. You've got, you know, I mean, it is, people say, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to put a few tweets out. You know, well, that's not really doing it. So it's really, if you want to do it properly, or do you just want to kind of do the tick box exercise? And I think, unfortunately, as much as it's not me, there are a lot of people that just want to tick a box.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, because you do have to be realistic with, especially if you're doing it for yourself, about how much you want to do, how much you can realistically commit to, because the worst thing ever is when someone has all of their social media channels that haven't been updated in 2.5 years. Like, it's better to have nothing than that, right? You know, to make a plan and at least be consistent in how you're presenting things, how often you're presenting things, and, you know, how you're positioning stuff, but at least be honest with yourself about what you're actually going to do.
It's funny, I had a conversation with Michelle yesterday online. There was they obviously, all the social networks are coming up with more and more and more gimmicks and frills and, you know, fleets and reels and one which really bugs me is stories in LinkedIn. It's like, oh, for God's sake, it's not bloody Instagram. Just go away. And you know, I said, I've had various conversations with people. I said, it's hard enough to get a bunch of 50-something business professionals on LinkedIn. If they go in and say, oh, I'm on stories, oh, no, you've lost them. And I think that there is an issue. Another issue is that there just seems, they all seem to be flooding the market with more and more stuff. And I think Michelle was absolutely right. It is so bloody complicated, social media now. Half the sites, I wouldn't know where to start. And I've written bloody books on the subject. I wouldn't know where to start now. And you often, I've worked with lots of business support organizations, and they go, well, you know, it's you don't want to labor it too much for businesses. It's hard. I said, yeah, but it is. And if you can't do difficult. It, you don't have a... And I do think that, you know, it's reached a crescendo. I think those people who are going to do it are doing it, and those people who are not are just saying, I'm out.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. That's a problem which needs to be tackled.
Yeah, I think there's also a danger of overload. I mean, I think, for example, one of the disadvantages of the crisis is that if you take LinkedIn as a specific example, you know, we went into what was effectively a recession, and everyone needed new business. And so you've got a bunch of people who are potential clients, particularly on business to business, and they're sitting there and they just want LinkedIn so they can connect with a few people and that kind of stuff. And then suddenly you've got everybody, you know, trying to send mails to these people and flooding it with basically junk mail, you know, and so it puts the buyers off the media itself. And they go, you know, they're trying to cut themselves off from this because they just want a nice little interchange, and it's become a massive noise in terms of volume. So that one particular media is losing its value because of what it's becoming. It's becoming a flood of sellers trying to hit the buyers in a way that the buyers don't want to be hit. Yeah. So and then you can't have a mature interchange of business development based on a more subtle relationship message.
Yeah.
So I've got one at 2:00 with a new one for me, which is Lunch Club, that I've been introduced to, and it's being portrayed as the new, as we're doing now, talking to one another. It's the LinkedIn where people interact face to face. So I'm having, well, they want it on Google Hangouts, which I hate, so I'm doing it on Zoom. But it's a case of talking to someone face to face and saying, what do you do? What do I do? Which takes the pain out of LinkedIn now. I just find LinkedIn has just become so clunky, as most of them have.
But I think that comes back to, again, people thinking they're just advertising channels and they're just going to use them for advertising. And it's like, you know, it's like networking, isn't it? If you were in a networking room face to face and we were just running up to one another, and you know, and all anybody was doing was saying, hey, you know, buy my
Here's
service.
my business card.
Buy my service. Here's my business card. Here's my bit. Well, what do you do? Don't worry about that. Just have the business card. You know, do you even know what I do? No. You know, we could be doing the same thing. Not interested. You know, because I get lots of requests on social media, on LinkedIn and other social media. Can I help you with your social media? You know, like, are you being rude, or, you know, have you even looked at my profile? So again, I think it's people not being educated as to how to optimize the channels, because that isn't what they're about. You know, that is not what it's about, and they're not going to work. And brands are just waking up to that now. You know, that hang on a minute, we can't just throw our advertising here and our budgets at this. We actually have to get down and get our hands dirty and start talking to customers, real customers, like real human beings. And we actually have to behave like real human beings rather than just advertisers. So, you know, it is changing, and I really I'm a radical optimist. I have hope that social will come through and be what it was meant to be, which is about engagement, about really cutting through the noise and enabling people to connect and communicate. And it does that very, very well for a number of things. You know, if you think about some of the causes and some of the initiatives that have come out of garnering, you know, galvanizing potential from people together to create incredible movements and things, you know, there's wonderful examples of that happening all the time. But also there's terrible examples of things, as you've just said, Chris, you know, people saturating it, selling it, spamming it. So we all become fatigued.
I have one small recommendation too that I've done a lot this year, is use the mute button. So if people are spamming your timeline or they're doing stuff that doesn't make sense on LinkedIn, just mute them. You won't ever see them again. And the other thing that does is if a whole bunch of people use that, it tells their algorithm that there's a whole bunch of content on LinkedIn that people don't want to see and they need to deal with.
And it's true. And once the algorithms wake up to that, which they are doing yet again, you know, then you know, it starts to become a better place. So we all have a role to mute things and to kind of play the game well.
Just to make your own life easier and less stressful.
Exactly.
If you don't want to see it, you can mute it.
Yeah.